Hi, this is Carrie Brownstein.
This is DJ Premier.
This is Darren Aronofsky.
You got the RZA right here.
Rose McGowan.
Radiohead.
Aisha Tyler.
Tribe Called Quest.
Fred Armisen.
Prince Paul.
Javier Munoz, Seth Meyers.
Frankie Cosmos.
Flying Lotus.
Hi, we're Chaim, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Talkhouse Podcast. I'm Josh Modell. On this week's episode, we've got a slightly more focused conversation than we often do as Matthew Houck, the driving force behind the band Phosphorescent, chats with legendary songwriter Nick Lowe, largely about Lowe's recently reissued 2001 album, The Convincer. Now, even if Nick Lowe's name isn't super familiar to you, some of his songs almost certainly are. He's had an incredible career that stretches back to the late 1960s, with his biggest mainstream moment coming via his dear friend Elvis Costello, who covered Lowe's What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding and made it a hit. Lowe also produced Costello's first 5 albums, as well as a bunch of other classic British records, in addition to his solo work and his time with the band Rockpile. Now, like I said, today's conversation is focused largely on The Convincer, which was something of an artistic rebirth for Nick Lowe. He wanted to age gracefully and continue to challenge himself, which he did with this trilogy of albums, ending with this one. It's a beautifully written and performed set of songs that didn't set the commercial world on fire, but which has quietly found its way into many people's hearts over the past 2 decades. Check out a little bit of that album's I'm a Mess.
I should be filling rooms with the sweet smell of success. I'm a mess. Look at what I've been reduced to.
Now that song, I'm a Mess, is the reason for this conversation. Houck, who has been making incredible music of his own under the name Phosphorescent since the early aughts, is an obsessive fan of The Convincer, so much that he's been working on a cover of I'm a Mess. A mutual friend of Houck and Lowe's sent Lowe a copy of the song, which isn't available yet, and they chat about it here. Now, the most recent Phosphorescent release is called the BBC Sessions EP, and it strips a set of Houck songs down to their barest essentials. Much of his studio material is far more gussied up, and this is a great chance to hear them kind of naked. Check out a little bit of Song for Zula.
Some say love is a burning thing, and that it makes a fiery ring. Oh, but I know love as a fading thing, just as fickle as a feather in a string.
As you'll hear in this conversation, Houck is a huge fan of Lowe's and specifically of The Convincer. They get into specifics about a bunch of the songs and we'll play you snippets throughout, and we'll find out if Lowe agrees that this was indeed his finest recorded hour. You'll also hear about how the Bodyguard soundtrack changed Lowe's fortunes forever, how his one-time girlfriend Margot Kidder made her way into a song, and how Wilco helped him win fans in Indianapolis. Enjoy.
It's really great to talk to you.
You too, and thanks so much for doing my tune.
Oh yeah, it's kind of coincidental how all this worked out. I had already been messing with that long before I knew I was gonna speak to you, and I happened to talk to Matt Hanks about. We just kind of ended up organically talking about The Convincer and discovered that we were both major fans of it. There's like a few ways you can go about covers, right? You know, you can like do them like they're yours, and not pay all that much attention to the original, And I guess in my mind, I thought maybe I would just kind of tackle that song, but it was quickly apparent that there was nothing to do but follow yours, like follow it closely. Because
I think it's a tough one. There's something about the way the song is, it's quite sort of desperate. I think it's a very bold move that you did it because it's not for everyone really, that tune, I think it's a great song, but I'd forgotten all about it till Matt sent me your version. I've got this little run of shows coming up in London, and I thought, I'm a mess. I wonder if I can still remember how to do that. And I got it out, and I thought, yeah, this could fly. So I'm going to do it on these shows, thanks to your digging it out for me.
I love that song, first of all. I think, tend to like, I guess the, bleaker, weirder songs on records, kind of consistently. But that one, it feels very much like a straightforward song until I was trying to play it. And it might be the weirdest song I've ever learned in the sense that it doesn't ever do what songs do, which is repeat itself ever. The chord progression never does the same thing twice. I felt like there was a verse and a chorus but there's not. It's an amazing trick.
Not that I'm comparing myself to the great man, but I remember someone pointing out on some documentary I was watching about Roy Orbison's songs that he never does that. He starts off and he goes from one sort of hook to another, ends on a high note, and everyone's very happy. The same thing happened to me when I started playing it again. I thought, oh, wait a minute. I remember when I was on that sort of Roy Orbison thing of never do the same thing twice. But I can also remember that when I got to the end of it, the sort of the natural end of the song, it seemed like it was too short. That it needed something else, another bit in it. But every time I tried to do another verse or something, it seemed to spoil it somehow. It seemed to, because of the nature of the song, or that somebody at the end of their tether.
Right, they're not going to go on. They're not going to go on about it.
Yes, yes. No, please, no, don't make me do it.
Right.
It's a good little piece, and thanks very much for drawing my attention to it.
Thank you. It's it's a perfect little song. I'm just going to sit here and gush at you the whole time, but I'm wondering about your writing process. It's so concise, or at least this record is, and it seems like it's put together so perfectly. I wonder how much pre-thought was that, or if it kind of just organically happened, or were you crafting like crazy on these things?
It's hard to remember exactly now, but I and the little sort of coterie of musicians that I started working with had done 2 records before The Convincer. And it all came about because I realized that the public were kind of tired of my shtick, and I was too. And my personal life and career and everything was really in the dumper, really, at the time. I was in bad way, and all the classic things, drinking too much and just tired of the sound of my own voice and everything. And I realized I had to do something different. And what I came up with after the mist began to clear after a few months, and I started to enter the real world again. I took stock of what I'd managed to achieve, and thought, well, you've done pretty well. You've had a couple of hits yourself, that's handy, And while I was a record producer, I'd managed to do some pretty good records with people along the way. Quite a lot of bad ones too, but that's the way that goes. But I'd done pretty well, But I felt that I hadn't really done anything at the same time. I hadn't done anything really, really juicy. I'd been a sort of pop star, and they're kind of for a penny, But I thought, well, what do you do now? I was heading towards 40 when at that time, in the 1980s, there wasn't any such thing as people in pop in their 40s. In jazz, yes. In country and western, yes, even back in those days. Unless you were Tony Bennett or Frank Sinatra, who were sort of curios really at that time.
Sure.
But I thought, I'm going to figure out a way of representing myself so that I can actually take advantage of the fact that I'm getting older in a business that doesn't value getting older. I didn't know it then as much as I know it now. But when you look in the mirror, and you think, who the hell is this old bastard, and where did he come from? Because it's a cliche, I know, but you still feel young at heart, and so I thought, well, I want to do records which are young at heart, but I've got all this experience and, I've been around and everything, so how can I do that? Make records that still sound funky, and fun and slightly out of, not for everybody, as I knew everybody wouldn't go for it. It wasn't like a plan for the market, so much as if that came along, I'd be thrilled,
Sure.
But I wasn't banking on that. And I thought that if I get it right, young people will dig it. I won't just be preaching to the old, God bless them, my old audience who was starting to think that I rocketh not anymore. As I was getting older, I was going off all that. I thought I'd done it's real good fun and everything, but the sort of rock and roll I like was something a bit more sort of creepy somehow, and doesn't involve loads of volume as it once did. I was setting my sights a reasonable level. but I thought it could work.
Did it work? Yeah. I mean, were they successful records compared to what you had in the past?
They were really, yes, because the other thing was that I thought I need to be on a small label. You know, that again at that time it was, oh my God, you've run out of big labels. You know, you've been on them all, and they've rejected you. You know, the only thing, my God, you're going to have to go on a small independent. You know. But I thought this would be a great idea. This will really, I need to be on a small independent label. So I'm a big fish in a small pool.
Right.
You know, that's an essential part of it, actually. And then, so that was that. I was taking care of all these things one by one. The other thing was that Elvis Costello had encouraged me to start doing solo shows, because he'd recently started doing that. And he said, "Oh, it's absolutely fantastic, you know." I said, "I don't think I can do that, EC. You know, you're made of different stuff from me. You know, you don't mind going out and banging away in front of thousands of people." Anyway, he talked me into having a go, because he took me on tour with him.
This was really a new thing. You had not done that prior.
No, I'd never done it before,
wow.
you know. And so he shoved me out to do a few tunes before the show. He had me in his group. He had this fantastic group with Jim Keltner and James Burton and these people. And it was a sort of world tour he took me on. And I was...
What year is this? What are we talking about?
I would think it was about 84 or something like that.
Okay.
And 83 or 84, when I had the first stirrings of this in my mind. You know, he took me off with him because I had nothing else to do. You know, it was really nice of him, actually. You know, and I just played a bit of rhythm guitar and sang some harmonies and things. But he shoved me out one night to do a few of these songs, and I found that people seemed to like it. That was astonishing to me, that people reacted so well to this. But also how appalled I was about how badly arranged some of these songs were. I'd been making records before, you know. I hadn't seen the importance of having the song absolutely watertight, because I'd stand up there and I'd sing some bit, you know. I thought, God, I can remember sticking this in, you know, because I thought it needed another little thing. Is really useless, this bit. Why on earth? And not only that, here it comes again. You know, so I really sat down and thought, well, you've got to start writing songs that are going to stand up under any circs. You can play them fast, play them slow, change the key, change the tense, you know, the anything. And so I went to work trying to get songs that did that, with a view to recording them as if I was making a jazz record or something. That's what I wanted to do. So there was a place not far from where I live. It's like a dance hall attached to a pub.
Okay.
But it's got a fantastic acoustic in it. It's got a sort of vaulted roof, you know, roof like that, and an old-fashioned dance floor. So I'd hire it in the afternoon. So I'd go over there after lunch, and I'd stay there all day. I'd take a guitar, but not an amp or a mic or anything like that. And I'd just start playing in this room, and it sounded so great in there that you'd sing out in it, you know. And I started to write these pretty good tunes in there. So we had the idea of renting this place and setting the gear up in there.
To record in there.
To record in there, yeah. And which we did. But what we hadn't recognized, that it was, a lot of people had similar ideas, like the Boy Scouts, you know, the Keep Fit Club, the photography club, you know.
No.
And so every night we had to kit a whole lot down and then set it all up the next day. And that put a little hitch in things.
That'll put a damper on it, yeah.
And so in the end, I thought I'd save on expenses, you know, but in the end, it cost about the same as sort of bridge over troubled waters or something, you know, to make this record, you know, because it just took us so long to do it.
That was Impossible Bird.
That was Impossible Bird. So the second, Dig My Mood, we went into a studio, and that one came out pretty well, but we thought, we knew, right, one more, this is going to be a trilogy, one more heave, you know, and we're through.
Okay, so the first two were kind of like trial, you know, getting to the, because, okay, I wonder if you feel this way. Do you feel that like Convincer in your repertoire is as special of a record as I think it is. Maybe your other records are great, but I think this is like a towering thing. It's such a special record.
It probably is my best record. I think it probably is my best record. But again, as you know, you don't hear things the way other people do. You can hear just the flaws, and just the things that are wrong, until time's gone by. And then sometimes you can hear something come on the radio, or you run across it after a few years and you think, my God, I thought
who did
this
that?
was a bit, exactly, not bad, But there are certainly other tracks on the other records that I love. But I think overall, The Convincer was the nearest thing to the original spirit, because we went on to make two more after that. We said, trilogy, that's for losers, So we went on and did another couple, because we just started enjoying it so much, enjoying hanging out with each other. And even though voices were saying to me, don't you think you better, hook up with some Peruvian flutists now, aren't you doing this, do something a bit different. I never got round to it. But yes, The Convincer was, I think, is my overall favorite. But anyway, Greg Geller, who was a lovely man who I'm still proud to call a friend, who was the man who signed me and Elvis to Columbia Records, lovely sort of old school A&R guy, He recommended Upstart as just somebody we should send the record to, and they were attached to Rounder. So we sent the record to them, and they thought it was great. And I'm still with them now.
So the record, that one comes out, and y'all, I guess, tour a little bit, or a lot.
Yes, an extraordinary thing happened. One of my songs got put in this movie, which was a massive hit. It was The Bodyguard, and my Peace, Love and Understanding song. Now, I've never actually seen The Bodyguard, but I think I've had quite a lot of goes at watching it, and I never managed to get through it all the way. But nonetheless, I understand from people who have seen it that it plays on a radio or something, a car radio in the background, But anyway, it got put on the soundtrack. And so from being pretty much broke, suddenly I started to get a number of large checks.
Wait, did you get like $1 off of every album that was sold in that or something?
It was much less than that, but there was so many. Millions and millions of copies sold. And suddenly I was a wealthy individual and able to tour The Impossible Bird in the United States, where my primary fan base was, due to Rockpile and they're in the 70s.
So you went with the band that was on the record, right? Okay.
Yes. And suddenly I started getting some good reviews, and people started getting it.
It's like starting over, sort of, in a weird way, right? With luckily you have this huge cushion of having a song on the biggest selling record of all time, maybe.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Was it your version that's on there?
No, Curtis Stigers did it. The whole story is quite remarkable. Curtis and I have been, because of it, we've been friends ever since. As you can probably imagine.
That'll do it, yeah. That'll do it.
I mean, it was a lot of money. It's amazing, actually, how quickly it goes. It enabled me to fund a tour of the United States, pay my recording expenses for Impossible Bird, and pay for to make the second one, to make Dig My Mood. And I bought a couple of suits, took a few people out to dinner,
right,
wasted a bit.
Yeah, you got to.
It sort of went, it went, but it demonstrated that I was sort of back in the marketplace again.
Otherwise this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, it really put me on the road to recovery again.
Man, that's yeah, I'm looking forward to one of those happening. So this brings us to where you're at when it's time to make The Convincer.
By the time The Convincer came on, our tails were up. We could see that we were reaching a new audience as well. A lot of my old fans dropped away because they couldn't hear the rock and roll in it, enough.
They were getting older too, right? I mean, didn't they want to mellow out?
I know, yes, but it's funny. They sort of want to relive their youth. They can't stand, their own a mirror being turned on them. They want to relive their youth, and a lot of my contemporaries are happy to supply that. To me, that would be like a living death.
You're among the guys that did it right. I really think that's true.
There was a bit of judgment, but it was a lot of luck involved in it. And I don't think it's that drastically different from what I've always done, but just presented with a little more care taken to certain things that not much care was taken of before.
Right. It's very stately, charming, mature, elegant. It's a very grown-up record. I feel like it leans into it. But it's also, subject-wise and stuff, it still feels pretty harrowing. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, yes. I was, in the midst, the things that everybody runs into, having a heart broken, something I think you have to put up with, once or twice in life, and I just been through one of those scenes. But I was very anxious to try and avoid putting my diary to music. I didn't want to make it autobiographical. I know what it feels like, to be misused or to misuse people. I know what it's like to be lied to, or indeed to lie to others. That stuff that comes along with being on the planet for a few years. But I was very anxious not make it too autobiographical, but to make the songs more universal if I could, but make them soulful, to actually really make something that sounds like the guy means it without insulting anyone's attention, because I'm a, white middle-class English guy, so I don't want to kid anybody, and I love American music as well. I love American music, but I love what happens to it when it comes over here, and the unique position that us Brits are in who love American music, to be able to sort of have this view America as this sort of giant smorgasbord of fabulous music. We can pick a little bit from there and take a little bit from there, shove it together with something. So I love American music, but I love what happens to it when it comes over here.
One of my buddies, when I told him that we were going to be talking, he's like, well, you're going to have to ask him about all that trouble in Yellowknife. And he must he sounds like he had a rough time over there. We got to talk about that. I love that song. Indian Queens is so good. But yeah, it's weird. I mean, I'd be amazed if it was autobiographical, but but it's such what a song that is. This record does all these like sneaky things. I think that I do think of it as a very personal record, but it's clearly not, as you say, your diary, but whatever thrust you were going, a thrust comes through, and that song in particular. And yeah, lately I've let things slide. That one sounds like it could have been maybe a bit close to home.
With a growing sense of dread and a hammer in my head, fully clothed upon the bed, I wake up to the world that lately I've been living in.
Can I ask you more questions about the sessions? I guess you're saying you guys tracked them live, which is surprising to me, I think, because when I get a group of people together and we try to do things live, it very often, it starts to rock, for lack of a better, you just kind of naturally want to vibe that way, especially if there's drums. And this record feels like all the ingredients were there, but either somebody was masterful in pulling the faders down during mixing and just erasing stuff, or it was it feels to me like it was overdubbed a piece at a time to kind of put this perfect thing together where, like you were saying about bringing in extra players, I can't imagine having a day and saying like on I'm a Mess, for example, when I was kind of studying that song and recording it a couple weeks ago. So there's a horn section that comes in and plays, 2 long notes and they're gone. So certainly you didn't say we need to call in the horn section today to record 2 notes and then get them out.
I played it after I heard your version of it. I played, and I was surprised in that. No, I think we did, but they came in to do something else, and we said, well, can you,
just do a couple droney notes right there.
I think they probably played a bit more on it than that. But Neil Brockbank was the guy who could do that fabulous mixing thing where he just sort of, it would just sound organic, and it would still sound sort of live-ish and funky, but that was the idea, to get the basic track down and get that sort of edited right. And then we overdub to our heart's content.
So kind of arranging it on the spot then. You didn't go in with these arrangements really dialed in like that beforehand.
We did. Me, Neil, and Bob would have these meetings. I've got another small house, little place I can stay up late and write and all that rest of it, But back in those days, we used to have these sort of like quite boozy dinners.
There we go.
And I'd knock up a bit of pasta or something like that, and we'd all, get some good wine in, and we'd sit around and we'd listen to records, including our own. We'd be very, very critical, be extremely critical. And also, when we'd call one of these meetings, I would play them, whatever new songs I had, any bits and pieces, that I couldn't get on with, if to see whether they thought they were worth persevering with. They'd be very, very frank. We used to talk about the bloke. The bloke is the guy who makes the records, and not me sitting there, playing the song to them.
Got it.
So there's nothing,
didn't
take it personally. They'd say, well, the bloke wouldn't say that, doesn't, the bloke, it doesn't sound right, the bloke saying that, It's not,
so this is writing sort of like thinking about the...
Yeah. I'd present a song to them, and they would critique it. I mean, sometimes they'd say, oh, that's a cracker. Yeah, that's I can hear how that could go. Yeah. But very often I would welcome it. I'd say, look, I've painted myself into a corner here, It's just such a good bridge, but getting out of it, where am I going to go? And then they said, well, why don't you see that line there that you did that sounds a bit throwaway, stick that back in and start with that. So I'd do that. I can't remember if we'd actually rehearse. I'd certainly send an acoustic guitar demo out to the other musician, the bass player, Geraint Watkins, who played keyboards and who was also a very important part of it.
That organ is astonishing all over that record, yeah. Is that a real organ? Is that a Hammond? Or is that like a keyboard?
Both, really.
Okay.
He had a really good sort of Hammond act, yeah. He could get a really fantastic old-fashioned, stopped Leslie sound, which I love, and also that kind of farfesery sound, which I love that sound. Anyway, that's really how we would churn this stuff over, and maybe have a rehearsal, maybe go to the little dance hall place where we record,
and bring all the gear over there and all that.
Yeah, we were rehearsing stuff up in that little room on 9/11 when suddenly one of our roadies came and said, you won't believe what's going on. So
that was, you guys were actually preparing to tour. That was the day the record came out, correct?
Yeah.
Wow. So that obviously got canceled, or did it happen anyways? Was that in the States? Were you supposed to come?
Yeah, no, it was delayed.
Right. Yeah.
Certainly delayed.
You guys really did something special that's like, it sounds huge, but also it's so like refined. Like everything is so well placed. That, I guess that's why I keep kind of going back to like wondering how the arrangements happened, is because like it just seems like so many amazing decisions must have happened. Were we all just like on a vibe that was like it just happened, or was it constantly thinking about like, well, don't go too crazy on this solo?
We did really talk about it quite. It's very hard because you don't want to squash the vibe out, by talking about it until no one wants to do it anymore.
It's exactly, yeah.
It's like trying to catch something in a bottle, lightning in a bottle, whatever the expression is.
Yeah, find that middle ground, yeah.
Yeah, and then do it until it goes away, which could be 3-4 takes maybe you might have, and that will be your thing.
Do you remember how long of a process it was from like starting recording to going to mastering?
It could be quite a long time because I never had a whole bunch of songs, all ready to go.
Oh, you would kind of get them as they came in and just call everybody? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that took a bit of time. But the actual recording, once we, knew what we had to do, it didn't really take that long. Neil would work hard on mixing it, but it was never head in hands, oh God, I was mixing till 5 this morning, I can't be, it never seemed to be like that. But we tried to make his job job as easy as possible by working the mix into the music, if you know what I mean.
There you go.
Making decisions early on, as you pointed out, mixing down things. The drums would generally be mixed onto 2 tracks pretty quickly, you know.
All right, and just commit. Yeah. When you guys were finished, did you feel that you had really done something, or do you always feel that way after records, or like did it feel more special than others?
I remember when Neil said, I've got this thing I've worked out, because I had this sort of idea about this song, Home Wrecker, which starts the record off.
You look like you could be taken for family. That's your style, Home Wrecker.
I said, I think this could be really great, really creepy, you know, fantastic, but I don't quite know how to do it. And we would use Pete Townsend's studio, actually. Pete Townsend had a studio not far from here. It was a bit fancy for us, you know. It took us a bit of time to get it to feel right in there, you know, and get the sound going. And by the time we got round to this Home Wrecker, we couldn't make out how to do it. We did 2 versions of it, one with me playing acoustic guitar and one with me playing bass and singing, you know, both. So I would do the vocal and we'd play the bass or play the acoustic. And he came round about a week later and said, look, I've got this sort of little plan, you know, for Home Wrecker. What do you think of this? And he played the mix.
Just organ like that?
Yeah. And it goes from there being bass on it to just being acoustic guitar on it, you know.
Oh, I don't think I even noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah. The bass drops in and out all the time. And he said, well, of course, we'll fix the bass, you know. And I said, man, no, are you kidding? You know, it sounds fantastic. It sounds really, really cool. And so those things would come along, those happy accidents.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's such a great way to start the record. Again, so many what I think of as like really bold choices that are still so subtle. To leave just vocal and organ for that long to start the record and wait that long before finally some drums happen to where you can kind of even like get your footing on that song is it's amazing.
It's nice of you to say so. It makes me want to go and listen to it now. I haven't listened to it for about 10 years, I don't think.
Can I ask you more about some of the writing stuff, like Indian Queens?
Yeah.
I'm going back to Indian Queens, 'cause it's been so long and I've gone wrong. Every place I've been, I left it all.
How do you end up writing a song like that?
I used to have a little pad, I suppose, a little house in Cornwall. They're in a town called Foy, which is a fishing village on the. I used to rent it out, actually, mainly because there's a big regatta. The town would get really full of tourists. I used to go in the off season down to this place, and it was quite boozy. You know, I used to have a few friends down there, and we'd hang out in the pubs and, you know, just have a good time, really. One time I was coming back, and it was started to drive back to London. I had a bit of a hangover, just a slight hangover, and I was driving back, and I came to this sign for a town which I'd driven past many times called Indian Queens. I'd driven past it a few times, and I always thought, God, such a great name. Why on earth? It doesn't sound like it's a Cornish name at all. It sounds like it's in a place in, I don't know, Idaho or somewhere like that.
I was about to say, it doesn't sound British. It doesn't sound British at all.
And I've very often thought about, I'd like to write a song, you know, with this title. It's such a great title. But anyway, on this day, for some reason, I turned off the road. I thought, I'm going to go and have a look at Indian Queens. It sounds so romantic and fantastic. So I drove down there, and it was a real dump. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. You know, it was a really grim little, you know, tired place. And but it got me thinking, and I started thinking about, God, it's just the sort of place, you know, when I was a teenager, when my dad came out of the Air Force, and I was waiting for life to begin, you know, that feeling of being absolutely sure that life was going on without me, you know, and I said, how much longer, oh Lord, you know, before I'm out of it. It was a perfectly nice place where we used to live, you know, but after seeing this Indian Queens, I thought, it seems like all the young people have just gone, you know, from this place. Or there can't be any jobs or something. Why does it look so bleak, you know? And so I started thinking of this little folk song about this guy, you know, a silly story, really. But it gave me a chance to say some nice words like, Santa Marta and
So you just kind of went with what sounded nice, or did you actually like look at a map and plot out this guy's course and figure out?
I got a map out.
Ah, amazing.
I used to go out with Margot Kidder, who's an actress who was in Superman. She was in the Superman movies. She was Canadian, and she came from Yellowknife.
Oh, no kidding.
Or Yellow Snow, as she used to call it. And I always thought, well, it's a great name. You know, there's no yellow knives in the UK, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this is a great chance for me to just stick this in for Margaret. I wasn't going out with her anymore, you know, but I thought, well, she'd get a kick out of me sticking Yellowknife in this song, you know.
Wait, have you ever been to a Yellowknife?
No, I haven't. No. Well, judging by what she told me about Yellowknife, it sounded like a Canadian Indian queen.
Yeah, it sounds like he's going from bleak place to bleak place, obviously. Yeah. Is Santa Marta, are you talking about I looked at this last night because I got so curious about it. So in like South America, Colombia, or the island, do y'all call it that?
Yeah, it is. I got a bit of luck there. So it's something about Panama. I wanted to say Panama.
Yeah.
It sang so well. And then I got a map out. Luckily, there was a place called Santa Marta, which again rolled off the tongue, you know.
Amazing. So you got this guy going from the UK, Indian Queens, leaving.
Yeah.
Somehow I imagine Indian Queens was somewhere in the like northeastern United States. So I was trying to follow his path.
That never occurred to me that people would think, of course, yeah. So I pretty much finished this song by the time I got back to London. I needed a few place names.
Oh, the melody, just driving, you had a driving melody.
Yeah. And I got the guitar out when I got back and found, this works pretty well, yeah. And the recording has got a really fantastic little atmosphere, things coming in and out, sort of dreamlike. But I found out why the place is called Indian Queens. It's named, dig this, after Pocahontas. And after Pocahontas saved John Smith's life, she didn't marry John Smith. She married one of John Smith's officers.
And came to England.
They landed in Falmouth, which in those days was a major, major port. It's about as near to America as you can get without leaving the British Isles, you know. And they landed at Falmouth and they made their way to London. They stopped at this place, which had an inn, you know, and put up for the night. And anyway, this, of course, she caused quite a stir, you know, with the locals when they turned up.
Yeah.
And she was such a knockout. Apparently, she was so nice and just charmed everybody, and they immediately changed the name of the town to Indian Queen. Indian Queen, it was called.
Unbelievable.
And then it got even weirder because it turns out she's actually buried in London, in Greenwich. It's really, really bizarre. And there are pubs around this area called the Indian Queen, the Indian, and they're all named after her. But I've discovered all this after this blooming song came out. People wrote to me and told me all this.
Wow, it's a great song.
Thank you. Yeah, it's nice to talk about it. I've got this little run of solo shows I'm doing in London starting next week, and that's why I was pleased to run across I'm a Mess again. You know,
awesome.
I'd stopped doing slide.
What songs do you do off this record then?
I never really sort of think of it like that, you know, as I should do a few off this and I should do a few off that. But I'd certainly been doing lately, I let things slide. And God, I can't remember. Has She Got a Friend? Isn't that?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've been doing that one. But with the solo shows, you get into sort of little grooves of things. You'll do something one night and you think, that's good, I'll keep that in. And then suddenly it gets kind of corny, you know, after a while, you can't stop doing it, you know. So the only thing to do is to just quit playing it, you know, and see if you can fall in love with it again.
Are these your first shows since being shut down all this time?
I've done a couple of festivals, but they also solo, actually, although one of them I was supposed to do with the Straight Jackets, but they couldn't get visas, you know, to come in.
Right.
So I took it as a good opportunity to try out these you know, revisitings and songs that people aren't aren't familiar with over here that I've written more recently. I'm pulling a few things out of the bag that I haven't done for quite a long time. But obviously, there's some tunes that I have to do. You know, people just need to hear them.
Do you have like a standard closer that you just have to end with?
Well, I have to do. I have to do "Cruel to Be Kind." And you talking about finisher? That was the finisher. Yeah. Well, I nearly always finish with "I Knew the Bride" when she used to rock and roll, because it's so straight ahead and everybody knows it. And when I write the book, I'll do that as well, which is from my Rockpile, with the record I did with Rockpile, which everyone seems to know. You know, they all really, my audience here, not so much in London. It's much more like an American audience. There's a lot of younger people come and see me in London, but elsewhere in the UK, I'm sorry to say, they only really know like my old stuff.
I mean, you were huge there, right? I mean, in your early bigger than in the States, right?
In my pomp.
Yeah.
Yes. Until.
So it kind of shifted. I mean, like, right? The States is more kind of.
They got worn out with me.
Okay.
Pretty much quicker, you know. And really over here, if you don't keep your foot on the gas, you've kind of had your go.
I see.
But I've sort of stayed kind of, you know, chugging along under the radar. But it's totally my own fault, because I just haven't nurtured an audience over here. I've always gone to the other places where I'm more welcome, States or Scandinavia for some reason. I do well there, and I go to Japan. I don't know what they think I'm talking about up there, but they really go for it. So
building, if we're saying there's kind of a strict division between early you and later you, has the later you, I guess, and I don't know if, you know, record sales are so different from obviously when they were probably, but like the trilogy and all these later records, are you at the same level that you were in those days, or is it just a totally incomparable thing?
That's a very good question. I think I'm perceived differently now, which I'm rather sort of pleased about, you know.
Yeah.
It's a kind of some elder statesman. I suppose it's better to be perceived as that, as somebody who's a bit kind of over the hill. It's a very fine line between elder statesman and over the hill.
There we go. Right. Yeah.
But I think because I've kept writing songs and I've played with lots of other people. Also, I have to mention Wilco as well. I owe them a tremendous debt of gratitude, you know, because they took me on tour with them at one point. And
when was that?
It seems fairly recent to me, but it was probably about 10 years ago.
Okay, right.
Like that. But they took me on tour with them to the Midwest, and that has always been a part of the United States that I have remained resolutely immune to. And they'd done one of my tunes. They'd done a song called "I Love My Label" from way back, because they'd launched their own label. So they did a cover of this song that I wrote called "I Love My Label," which I wrote about Stiff Records. And they took me on tour. So I used to get up and play "I Love My Label" with them. And they also did a fantastic version of "Cruel to Be Kind" as well.
Oh, cool. I don't know that.
And which I would sing with them. But apart from that, I just I'd do half an hour before they came on, and it was remarkably well received. And now, you know, Indianapolis, bring it on.
You can go there, no, right?
I can
That's
go
amazing.
to Indianapolis. And
so you feel a direct result from that.
Direct result as of Wilco's very welcome attentions.
That's amazing.
It was really good fun. They're terrific boys, and it was great. So it's a good question that about. I was sort of more on the TV back then, you know, back in those days, and on the covers of the magazines and that sort of thing, because I was, you know, younger and prettier in those days, you know, which helped. And I was in a band, you know, Rockpile, where I had a reputation as quite a party band, you know, so and that was all the rage back then.
Well, I hope, are you going to be able to make it over here? Are you making new tunes right now? Or
Not really, no.
Not really?
I've written a few things, but I found this lockdown time extremely uninspiring.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Awful. I really need to go out and see some people. That's how I get your ideas and see how people react to things. So I need to get out there. I love playing live. But I'm a lucky fellow. I'm a really lucky fellow. I get to talk to nice people like you and ask me about these old records, and it's great fun to talk about them, Matthew. So thanks very much.
Well, listen, thank you. The fellow who showed me this record, I asked him if he wanted to ask anything, and one of the things that I feel like might be a fitting ending, he wonders if you know, or if it feels to you the way he feels about it. And this is, I guess, why I'm asking about where this thing lands in terms of like success. I didn't hear this record until, it had been out for probably 8 or 9 years at that point, but it did reach me, and he feels it's like this record that gets kind of passed around as like a secret. It didn't come with like a press blitz or something like that, obviously, Anytime you ever show it to anybody and go, have you ever heard this? And you just dig this, put it on. And it's without fail, everyone is just floored. You made something really special, really amazing.
Well, that's very kind of you to say so. And I should get it out and have another listen to it.
Yeah, enjoy it. It's a good one. Yeah.
Fantastic, Matthew. Well, it's been a great pleasure talking to you.
It's great talking to you too.
I hope we can meet in face to face properly at some point.
I hope so. Yeah, either over there or over here. If you come around, I'll find you. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Thanks for listening to the Talkhouse Podcast, and thanks to Nick Lowe and Matthew Houck for chatting. If you like what you heard, please follow Talkhouse on your favorite podcasting services and social media outlets. This week's episode was produced by Melissa Kaplan, and the Talkhouse theme is composed and performed by The Range. See you next time.